Hello and welcome to the Christian Fantasy and Sci-Fi Podcast, where we talk about anything and everything fantasy and science fiction. Your host is Matt Crosswhite, and the subject matter expert is Josiah Marshall. And here we go.
Hello and welcome back. Thank you for joining us again today. We're going to resume our interview with Jonathon Marshall, owner of Marshall Custom Models. So without further ado, here we go. How long does one model, say the Enterprise refit, how long would that take you?
If I'm working on it about 6 hours a day, I can usually have it done in 4.5 months.
Wow. Okay.
And see, that's what people are like, wait, 4.5 months. Doesn't it take you 3 months to do the pearl? Yeah. But it only takes about a month and a half to put the thing together.
Sure.
That's not the complicated part. It's the pearl.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, all these models, like the original series Enterprise I'm working on, that usually takes me like 4 weeks. Just because of how, it's the original series. They didn't have any fancy pants stuff on it like they did when motion picture came out. So yeah, it usually takes me like 4 weeks.
But you got the decals, right? The insignias rather that you on the side of the ship.
Yeah, and so I apply those decals. All the insignias, I'll use those decals. But all other paint, any area that requires color, that's painted on. It's not, because you can tell. You can tell the difference between the two.
So the point I'm trying to drive at with all of this detail is the fact that you are very detail oriented. And so when you see these models, you'd almost think, wow, this is from the show. I could see this on the screen. And so I remember you telling me one time that you would rewind just a few seconds of a scene over and over and over and over again, just to get the detail from that scene because of a client asking for a specific style on the side of the ship, whether it was from a battle scene or whatever. So
yeah, it's usually on the pearl. You have to go frame by frame until you can finally see, there it is. The light hit it just right. That's where it's supposed to be. That's the color it's supposed to be. Got it. And you put it on.
Wow.
And it's little things like that. Like you think, oh, well, that little square, it doesn't do a whole lot. It's like, yeah, it all depends. With the refit, I tell people you either need to do the pearl and do it right, or don't do it at all.
Oh,
there's no halving this. If you're like, oh, I just want a little bit, it doesn't look good. It doesn't. Like if you skimp on the pearl, it's not a good result. It looks like something's lacking. But if you're willing to put the 3 months into it to get the pearl, when it's done, it looks. There is no other model that has ever been made that looks like it. It really, truly is a one of a kind.
Wow.
And there'll never be one made again.
Oh, wow.
Because everyone just makes a computer. Yeah. Why build a model when I can just hire a computer guy?
So we had Andrew, our youngest brother, on, and he was telling us about his Kobayashi Maru music video.
Yep.
Which model did he use?
That one he used the Enterprise.
Okay. Which?
Yeah, he used the Enterprise for that one.
Was that the original Enterprise?
No, that was the Enterprise refit, which was the same one that was shown. So what they did is they basically said, okay, we're taking the original series Enterprise from the show, or from Kirk's 5-year mission. We're going to send that back to dry dock. We're stripping her all the way down to her keel and rebuilding her.
Okay.
So that's why they call her the Enterprise refit. Because she is a Constitution refit class.
Okay.
That was the ship that was used in Wrath of Khan and the Search for Spock. That's why when the guy said, Jim, the Enterprise is 20 years old, we think her time is over. That's why, because it was the original Enterprise. And so, yeah, the one that he had in his was the Enterprise refit, which was the one in Wrath of Khan that fought Khan.
Okay.
And so he thought it would be really cool to have that one flying around in his music video.
Well, I've seen it, and so have others. He's already got quite a number of views on that video, and we've already posted it with the episode we did with him. And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful machine. And so that leads me to one of my last questions, and that is, why do you think? So you focused so much on Star Trek. You're getting so much more requests on Star Trek than any other show. Why is that, you think? What is it that's so appealing about Star Trek and these ships? Is it the ship itself? Is it the story? Is it a combination of things? What would be your thoughts on this?
So I've talked to a buddy of mine about this quite a bit. Another buddy of mine who we both build. We've had a lot of conversations about this because there really are a few different kinds of people. Some guys, they go all in on Trek, but then they're Star Wars models, Gundam models, RC models, all this kind of stuff. And the conclusion we're starting to come down to is you have guys who like Star Wars models.
Sure.
But the guys who are more in I call them Lucas hounds.
Okay.
From a movie called Fanboys. They called Star Wars guys Lucas hounds and Star Trek people Trekkies. So Lucas hounds.
Okay. I vaguely remember that movie.
Yeah. Lucas hounds, they love the models. But from what we've been noticing is the culture that really was that into Star Wars, right? Oh, Star Wars. Did not necessarily grow up and want to or necessarily have the funds to purchase one of those models made by an artist. And there's so many you can get, like toys and whatnot.
Yeah.
Star Trek, on the other hand, the guys who grew up watching Star Trek, we feel that it's a different type of personality that's drawn to some of these, where there's more depth to the story. It's slower. In the search for Spock, when Kirk is sitting on Genesis or standing on Genesis and says, "My God, Bones, what have I done?" As he's looking at the Enterprise streaking through the sky. When that scene happened and they blew her up, it was a shock. Like, oh my gosh, they killed her. She's gone.
Yeah. You could really have an emotional attachment to that chip. And the way they edited that movie that way, I thought was superb. Truly superb, because you really not only were developing a connection with the characters, but you developed an affinity for that ship itself. Yeah, because it had been through so much with the person growing up with it, right? Because you had it with the TOS, which was the original series. Was it also the same one or same-ish style that they had in the cartoons?
Yeah, so the original series cartoons went for 2 seasons back in I think that started in 70. It was either 69 or 70, right after the show. Went for 2 seasons. It was the original cast that did all the voiceovers. Right. And yes, that was basically saying, hey, this ship was supposed to be on a 5-year mission. We only did a 3-season run. So we're going to do 2 seasons of the cartoon, and they just continued it on.
Okay.
But yeah, it was the original. Fantastic.
But the ship that we're talking about, so this is the refit. This was after even that series.
The refit, she came about in the motion picture.
Okay.
The refit itself, she went from motion picture, Wrath of Khan, and then she was the one destroyed in Search for Spock.
Search for Spock.
That's why it was so devastating to them. They'd been on that ship for 20 years. That was their home. That was everything they had. And blowing her up like they did, you felt it. Yeah. And see, that was the thing. Like, talking with my buddies about some of this, we feel that Star Trek, what they've done is they've worked really hard to keep a sense of humanity, to keep a sense of mortality. Yeah. And everything.
Sure.
They kill main characters. In DS9, they killed Jadzia Dax. They killed Lieutenant Yar. In Star Trek Nemesis, they killed Data. Right. They destroyed the Enterprise. The refit, they destroyed the Enterprise D. The Enterprise E was broken in half. It leaves you with a sense of mortality. It's like, no, this is actually pretty dire stuff. People die. Yeah. And so when you get attached to something, you don't want to see it die because it's on the table. Whereas in Star Wars, everyone's immortal. I grew up a Lucas hound. There are aspects of Star Wars I love, but everyone's immortal apparently. No one
the
dies in Star
Millennium
Wars.
Falcon has been through so much. It's amazing that thing is still together, especially with how much of a, what does Han Solo call it, a rust bucket or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, he calls it a rust bucket. So yeah, we feel that the guys who like Star Trek, and the other thing is that as far as the vehicles are concerned, they're actually something you want to look at. Star Wars are impressive, but honestly, I could tell you 6 model kits. If you went and bought those, you could build an X-wing.
Oh, okay.
Like all of these, they were kit bashed. The medical frigate. I had a buddy at Wonderfest, a model show, who had one that he was selling there. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's the tank off of a space shuttle booster. That's a Japanese hull. That's a tank turret. Like all of these little parts on this Star Wars model." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Oh yeah, you just look at it and you name every single model all those parts came from." But they weren't really meant to have lights. They don't look good in the dark. They're meant to be under light. Whereas Star Trek, that refit, when you turn off the lights and look at her, when it's just her shining, it's a sight that you really don't get anywhere else. The guy one of the guys who helped design the Enterprise refit, his name was Andy Probert, and he designed it taking inspirations off old World War II aircraft carriers.
Okay.
And that's why when you see the cutaway versions of the refit, everything's designed like an aircraft carrier. The color schemes inside the shuttle bays, the blues and the greens, was an aircraft carrier. The navigational lights, the strobe lighting, but then also the spotlights, everything. It was modeled after a carrier. So they were designed that when it's completely pitch black, you can see the model perfect because she lights herself. Whereas the Star Wars model had to throw a couple fiber optics in there and put a giant floodlight on it, and you're good to go.
So when we're thinking about these models in this way, you really see that the Star Wars approach is kind of piecemealed, whereas with the Star Trek, you get something a little bit more uniform. And even the way you're describing the Star Trek ships reminds me a little bit of Steve Jobs and with Apple and how he's talking about the sleek nature of the iPhone, right? And just how its simplicity and its form offers a certain beauty, an eye appealing beauty to it. And so you would basically say the same thing about the Star Trek ships, right?
So because the refit, my buddy had an opportunity to talk to Andy Probert. I think he's still around. I don't think he's passed yet. And he told me that Andy, when he was talking to him, said he wanted to design a ship that looked like a swan floating through space.
Oh, wow.
That had a look of beauty and grace, but also don't piss me off. And I'm like, you succeeded. When I look at that refit, I think she's gorgeous. I don't want to get in a fight with her though. She'll rip you apart. And they nailed it with that model. Just nailed it with that design. Whereas the new Star Trek models, they're overcomplicating them. They're like, oh, it looks like this. Let's add this. Let's add that. I'm like, guys, no. Now it's starting to look like a Star Wars model.
Okay, so if you don't mind me asking, what are some of these models that you don't have a high opinion of these days? Is there a specific show or a specific model from a show that you're finding distasteful?
Everything post Star Trek Enterprise.
Oh, okay.
So a whole lot.
Okay.
It's not that they're not cool. It's like the JJ Enterprise, there are aspects about it. I'm like, man, I see what they're doing. There are aspects of it I really like.
Sure.
But it's overcomplicated.
Yeah.
It's not scaled correctly. Like the shuttle bay inside, like that shuttle bay is the size of a aircraft carrier itself. That model, that ship is only supposed to be 990 feet long. When you're saying the secondary hull alone is 900 feet long, that's how big the Excelsior was, and that was a big ship. She was huge.
Yeah.
So
kind of reminds me of
things like that.
Kind of reminds me of the tent in the old movie, The Seven Faces of Dr. Lowe, and how the tent was bigger on the inside than it was on the outside.
Yeah.
And so it would make sense that with some of the more dedicated fans that there's a certain aspect of realism going on here.
Yeah.
Let's keep it within the aspects of what we're expecting the ship to be.
So George Takei, and you can say whatever you want to say about him, but back in the day, during the original series, they had multiple directors, do the shows.
Right.
One of the directors came in and said, "I want you to say this and then hit that button right there, like you're going to warp speed." And George looked at him and said, "No, warp is over here." He's like, "No, but I want you to hit that one. It's more dramatic." He said, "No, we have fans, and they know warp is over here."
Over here.
And so he knew where they do the exact same thing. Whereas nowadays, so in Star Trek Picard, they came out with the new Enterprise G, right? I am acquaintance with the guy who designed that ship. His name is Bill Krause. I've met him twice. He's better friends with a buddy of mine. But so that one, he designed that model to be the same size as the Enterprise refit, which is just under 1,000 feet long. Okay. Well, in Star Trek Picard, they're talking about and showing all the interior and saying that ship was the size of an Excelsior class. And all the fans, all my buddies who watched it, they're looking at it saying, but if you look at the saucer, the rim, there are 2 windows. That's where the rooms are. There are 2 windows. So if that thing's the size of the Excelsior, those windows are 6 meters tall. That doesn't make any sense. That means like each deck is 6 meters. Come on, guys. But the studio, they don't care. They're like, oh, we don't care. We're just gonna, this is the set. That's what it is. Scaling doesn't matter.
And we know it's bankable, so we just want it on TV so we can be making money here.
Yeah.
Right.
And everything post Star Trek Enterprise, that's what they started to do. Like they held true in DS9, TNG, even Voyager. Enterprise, the NX-1 was very realistic on the scaling. But it's when Star Trek with J.J. Abrams came out, that's when they really blew things way out of proportion. To the point where it's like, guys, this is like, come on, it's hard enough to take this stuff serious as it is.
Yeah.
You're not making it any easier here.
Right. Well, let me ask you something then. When it comes to DS9 ships, what did you think of the idea of the Defiant?
I felt do what?
Yeah, well, I mean, was it conducive to what you thought when you think Star Trek? Because you've got a battleship essentially, right? And so, do you think that was conducive to the Star Trek logic of vehicles and starships in general?
So I think the route things were going. So when you look at the different ships, the NX-1, she was a rust bucket, right? She was a tin can that was thrown together. Hope she stays together, kind of thing. That's the first one.
Right.
The TOS, it was a ship primarily built on exploration. And that was it. That's why she didn't have that many offensive and defensive capabilities. That's why when they went up against a Klingon D7, they were horrified. Like, that D7 is going to destroy us.
Okay.
And then
so when the limitations.
Yes. The refit, when she came out, they focused on upgrading her speed, weaponry, and shields. So that they could, but they didn't want to be an attack ship because they wanted to continue to be exploration. When the Excelsior came out, she was designed to be a long range, even farther out than the refit could ever go. Refit had enough supplies for 5 years. The Excelsior could stay out for 10 plus. Like, she was designed to be a long ways.
Longer.
And so when you look at her, the way they built her, even when they went up into the Enterprise B with the top-mounted impulse, they were supposed to be shuttle bays. But when they filmed it originally with the lighting inside, it looked like impulse engines, so they just went with it. But they were supposed to be upper shuttle bays because they were going to go even farther out for exploration, and they needed more shuttles. But as things started going on, then you came about to the Enterprise C. That ship was squattier. It was more compact and had more weaponry on it because there was more battling going on. So they needed a ship that was more focused on military than exploration.
Sure.
And then when Enterprise D came about, they're like, we're doing more diplomacy, exploration. We need a different type of vessel that can stay out for a long time, entertain dignitaries, and that's what they went to. But when DS9 started, and they started creating new ships, that was also the same time the Enterprise E was created. They had to create a different type of ship that wasn't really focusing on exploration anymore. Right. And was focusing more on defense and offense.
Right.
That's
Patrol.
where the Enterprise E came into place. That's the whole point of the Defiant. That's why she had massive engines and major firepower and a tiny little crew compartment.
Yes.
She was a flying engine and a flying bomb,
Right. I mean, I remember Miles O'Brien having a few comments to say about how they put everything together. But even then, when you were thinking science, I remember him talking about how they designed the ship in ways that were proven before to be quite fatal almost to some of these larger ships. But in this case, they designed it to be more, basically to give it more firepower.
To give it more firepower,
channeling things through certain systems.
Yeah, well, that's what they started doing on the Enterprise refit. They increased, according to Commander Decker, he said we increased phaser power by channeling it through the main engines. So when the engines went into any matter imbalance, the phasers were automatically cut off. So that was the way they tried to increase it. The biggest thing they did with the Defiant were the engines. They talked about, you're taking these massive engines and sticking on this tiny little ship. She's flying apart.
Yes, I remember Miles saying that.
They started having that issue with the Excelsior in Undiscovered Country. It's like, come on, she'll fly apart. Fly her apart then.
Until they have that anticlimactic. They had that anticlimactic scene with they're getting ready for transwarp, and then the computer screen says, "Good morning, Captain," because Scotty had removed those pieces.
Yeah. So when the Defiant came out, she was built for a very specific purpose, only to attack the Dominion. That was
okay, right.
That's why after the Dominion went down, they came out with the crap, I can't remember the name of the class ship right now. I'm spacing on it, but it's the USS Voyager.
Yeah, with the biogels and everything.
That was the latest ship to be once again solely focused on exploration. She was designed to be a fast, long-range ship. That's why she launched from DS9. That's why the beginning of Voyager was DS9, because they needed a far away point to start their mission. What was this? The Bellerophon was another one. I'm drawing the name, spacing on the name of that class ship. But when all the Dominion was over, they kept the Defiant, but they never mid another one. That class ship died out. And they started focusing back on exploration. They went to the Voyager. I personally was not impressed with the Enterprise G, but what they did do to it is they took it back to an exploration. They were trying to get back to what they were doing. So when you look at the evolution of it, you can tell why these ships were made for certain reasons, and then how at the end of it, they're finally getting back to what the Federation was founded on, and that was exploration. And that's why arguably most fans didn't like Deep Space Nine. They preferred Voyager because they liked seeing, they're like, we want exploration.
Different aliens, different planets, different events happening. So you're kind of stuck to one scene, and a lot of primary characters that you're seeing over and over again develop in just relational ways. And what can be usually a station. But I think the advantage of that is that it was a station. It was this place where aliens came to you, and you ended up having these different things. And because it was sitting right in front of that wormhole, then you're getting these new aliens coming in through the wormhole. And you've got that one episode where that maze game that they had, that everybody got stuck in. It's like, that could have only come in from somewhere else.
Right.
But
and that was the thing, and And for me, my personal taste, my all-time favorite ship is the refit, hands down. Nothing has even come close. My number 2 is DS9.
Oh,
because the designers,
the model itself.
The model itself, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the station itself. The designers were heavy because it was Cardassian. They said, we're going to give them a major Art Deco. That's what we're going to take our inspiration from, is Art Deco from the 1920s, the touring period. And so when you look at DS9, it just screams Art Deco, which I really like Art Deco. I love the sharp angles, the drastic colors. It's beautiful. And so that's one that I will eventually make as a much larger kit as well.
Really?
But yeah, it can't be too large because unlike the refit that's wide, it's like, oh, it's 3 feet long. Yeah, but it's only 14 inches deep, so you can put it on a shelf. The DS9, it's like, oh, it's 4 feet in diameter.
Right.
Where am I going to put a 4-foot square block, you know? Right. It takes up a whole corner of a room.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, oh, wow. And then given that I presume you'd be lighting with LED lighting, and so I mean, just even in that self, you're basically looking at. You might as well put ornaments on it when it comes to Christmas time, because you've got yourself a built-in Christmas tree.
Pretty much. That's why I've decided I'm probably going to do it at 2 feet in diameter, because I think I can get away with 2 feet. Any more than that, it's like, where are you going to put it? You know, you can find places for a 2-foot item, but yeah, anything larger, you can't put it anywhere.
Well, one clarifying question, if I may. You've said anything pretty much after Enterprise. What do you think of this newest show, though, with Christopher Pike?
I honestly haven't even started to watch it.
Oh,
I'm just not a fan of the new stuff. I tried an episode of Discovery. I couldn't do it. Picard, I didn't even, after I watched that episode of Discovery, I'm not even going to try. And I talked to a lot of my buddies who are watching them, and they're all saying it's painful watching. So why are you watching them then?
No, it is.
But the one thing they have said is the 3rd season of Picard was very good. That's what every one of them keeps saying.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet, I don't think.
My buddies, who we all agree, like, we hate these certain Star Trek movies and shows. Every one of them has said, they all said, I hated Discovery, but the 3rd season of Picard, they're like, it was good. And also Pike. That one is doing okay for the day and age it's made in. Yeah,
I would agree. I've seen all the episodes that are available of the latest one, and it even did storylines that were a lot like Foster Allen Dean's from his books, that they end up actually going outside of the galaxy. You've got those what are the kind of clouds on the edge of the galaxy, and they actually pop through, and they find a planet ship size thing that's pulling another smaller planet in tow.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Graveyard. That one was excellent as far as I was concerned. But the best one so far was where they took a TOS episode, and so you had the timeline where Kirk was captain, and then you had the timeline of Pike. Well, what would happen if Pike stayed on? What difference would that make in him looking at this situation and the decisions he would make? And so that episode in itself was really quite fascinating. I can't remember exact time. I think it was a mock time or something along those lines. I could be wrong on the episode title, but it was truly quite interesting. And I'd be very interested to hear later on of what you think of their model, because you haven't seen that model then, yes?
No, I do. I do know that model. Yes, the new version of the original series. Yeah, it's a little too sharp for me. Like the saucer edges are a little too sharp. But I do think they're doing a good job. They're trying. I think that one is more realistic. The more I look at the JJ Enterprise, it's just not practical. Those pylons are tiny. The neck is tiny. It's like, how's this thing staying together? Type deal. It's so fragile.
Sure.
But some of the and the Enterprise G, I wasn't a huge fan of it. It's just really blocky looking. But I could tell, I think they're getting back. They're getting back. And when I saw the one from Strange New Worlds, like, I think you can definitely see the original series Enterprise inspirations here.
And
I felt they were actually trying. But yeah, it just all depends on so many factors.
Sure.
But
well, for our listeners that are into Star Trek, let's hear your favorite series. What's your number one series out of Star Trek that you like the most?
DS9.
What's your least favorite?
Voyager. I've tried it over and over and over again. I have, and I can't stand Catherine Janeway. I've seen her in person. I'm not a big fan of her in person, and then when I see her in the show, I'm like, I can't take it. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's like I know that Avery Brooks, he's insane.
Yeah,
I've seen him in person too. He's insane, but I really like his Cisco.
Right.
But yeah, DS9 is my favorite because it's dark. They're not afraid to kill people. It's very just down to earth. You feel the gravity of it.
Yeah.
You know, my favorite episode from that is in season 6. It's called In the Pale Moonlight. Oh. And in that one, it's all about Cisco tricking the Romulan Empire to enter the war.
Yep. I remember that episode.
He says
very well.
He says, I lied, I cheated, I'm an accessory to murder, and I think I can live with it. I can live with it.
Yeah.
But he did, and I'm like, holy crap, a Federation captain murdered. He was a part of a conspiracy, lied, worked with an assassin. Oh my gosh. Wow. Because that was the only way to defeat the Dominion.
Right.
So I really like how dark that one is. The fact that they killed Jadzia Dax. I was really sad why that happened to the actress. It was all just like a big misunderstanding, and I felt bad for her. But as far as the story arc goes, I thought it was really good, really well done.
I couldn't agree more. I'll just say it for the record. DS9 is my favorite as well, because not only do you have some fascinating narratives, but you've even got more fascinating the character developments that these people go through, and the fact that they're not pretentious. Now you got to kind of return to some of the acting that they had in TOS in the original that was more Shakespearean in a way, but this one, while it had more serious acting, much like the original, it was, as you would say, down to earth. It was much more grittier. Yes. It's much more part of aspects of life that are very real, which is one reason why I appreciated how they showed tolerance and how it was possible to be able to put up with people given the different approaches, especially even between Bajorans themselves, right?
Yeah.
So,
because it wasn't a Federation ship. It was a Bajoran ship. It was a captured Cardassian space station by the Bajorans, and it was owned by the Bajoran government. And the Federation was there on invitation from the Bajoran government. So Cisco being there, he had to deal with so many different cultures, so many different aliens. And I really appreciate that, you know, because it's not just one big happy family. You know, hey, happy baby. They had to get things figured out.
It's frontier living. So you get that pioneer aspect, that old town, Western town aspect, especially when you've got Odo and Quark, which are played by some phenomenal actors. I understand you met and chatted with Armin Shimmerman for an extended period of time.
Yeah, he's a smart guy. I really like talking to him. And then Odo, I'm spacing out. Renee. When he passed, that was really sad. I was like, man, that was a truly good actor right there who just passed. A lot of DS9 people are dead. Nog is dead. The guy who played Nog.
Oh, real? Oh, I think I knew that. Yeah. No, I think I knew that. Yeah,
he's dead. Renee is dead. Who else was it? I think that was it actually. Just the two of them. But it was kind of surprising. Like, holy smokes, they're dead. What? Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Well, this has been absolutely fascinating. I really appreciate your time, Jonathan. Now, I want to make very clear here, we've kind of said it throughout the episode, but you do make custom models that people can buy as a kit, correct?
Yes, I sell a kit where I send you the parts and you put it together. Or I sell my services to build a kit and hand you a finished product. So I'm dipping into both of those realms. Just to give guys more options who the option's never been there before.
Okay.
It's kind of a new thing.
Well, can you give us your website address for the sake of the recording? And then I'll definitely put it in our link.
MarshallCustomModels.com.
All righty. And how far out can somebody expect to get a model from you these days? If they're taking these long, 4 years. Okay, so you got a waiting list.
I have a list of guys who've been waiting for a little while. So yeah, as of right now, it's just under 4 years actually. It's fall of 2026.
Wow.
So I'm down to 3 years now. Look at that. Okay, 3 years. Yeah, fall of 2026 is my next slot that's available.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm building a model right now. A guy's been waiting 4 years. I'm finally getting to his model. Like there's just
wow. And just for the record, you're pretty much limiting yourself to Star Trek these days. Yes, there's not. Any other...
I'm trying to narrow it down. Like I built a Star Wars one, but honestly, they bore me. I'm bored. I'll build it for you, sure, but it's not going to have the. Like when you look at a refit that I put together, you can tell. Wow. When you look at a TOS, when you look at any of the Star Trek models I put together, you go, wow, that guy clearly likes Star Trek. Yeah, I do.
Right.
Whereas when you look at the Star Wars ones, you're like, yeah, it's good. Yeah, I know. It's just
right.
So I really try and limit myself to Star Trek.
Well, okay. Well, hey, we thank you so much for being on with us today. It's been an honor to hear what you have to say and share us your insights and the education that you put yourself through. And you sell these things all over the world. You're basically world renowned. Let's just say it.
Yes.
Jonathon Marshall and Marshall Custom Models is world renowned.
I've shipped to Australia, South America, a lot in Europe. So yeah, I've shipped Canada, all over the world. I've shipped finished models and kits all over the world.
Wow. And we're not talking just, I mean, I've seen you pack up some of your ships before. We're talking full wooden crates with specialized packing to keep that thing stable. So
I took it to UPS once and the guy's like, what do you have in there? A dead body? How'd you know? Yeah, man.
Oh no.
Shipping a cadaver in there. But yeah, it does look like a coffin to use a crude term, because it is a wooden crate, and these are suspended in anti-static peanuts to prevent any electrical charge that could short out the circuitry. And it can be dropped and the ship actually bounces on those peanuts. It creates kind of like an air pocket that it can bounce on these peanuts, and the peanuts give a little bit, so there's far less stress put on the model itself, and it can survive a trip to France.
Wow. Well, another aspect of your education that you put yourself through. This is incredible. Because you didn't learn this at a school. So have you ever thought, I'm just curious off the bat, are you curious of ever having an apprentice someday?
I've had two guys approach me who said that they wanted to do it, but it actually didn't work out because I would just sit with them and I always tell them, okay, you want to get into this? Yeah. Okay, go buy a snap together model. Well, what do you mean? I want to build this. I know. But if you can't take the 30 minutes to put a snap together, and I'd look at it and I was like, okay, here's a sheet of tape. Yeah. Spend 4 hours masking off that 3-inch section. But for why? So you can paint it for 2 minutes and then rip it all off. And then do it 100 more times.
Right.
Like that's what it entails. Are you able to do that?
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm like, see, that's why it has to be something you enjoy doing. I'm a bit of a freak. I like sitting and putting window masks on. I'm a little insane. I don't get it. But you do have to find enjoyment in it. Because if you don't, you're going to want to throw the model up against the wall.
Sure. Oh, I can understand that. Yeah.
So, but if you understand what goes into it and what the sacrifice is required, and it's not even a sacrifice, it's a hobby. Come on, let's be honest. It's a hobby. Most guys do it as a hobby.
Right.
Do it a couple hours a day. Give you a little bit of downtime. It'd be great.
Sure. Wow.
So, but yeah, I'd love to have an apprentice. It's just finding someone who, and I'd like to pass on the craft because I'm the youngest guy in my group by 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Like there just aren't guys my age doing it.
Wow.
All the guys I know, they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s. So if anything, I just want to pass on the knowledge. Like, let's just keep this going. Like, I've learned an awful lot here, and I hate for me to just die and it's just gone.
Right.
Well, I guess
I should ask the question then. Have we seen any of your stuff in any shows other than the Kobayashi Maru music video by Andrew Marshall?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I've shipped it to a few guys who've worked in the entertainment industry, And they've talked about, it's like, we might use it. Like, okay. So,
okay. Wow.
Not to my knowledge. I have not built one specifically. I've had a few people contact me to build one for theaters and movies, but they don't have the budget to hire an artist to build one of these things when they can take a couple of computer guys and it's done in 4 days. It's just which is it's not practical anymore. So
yeah. Well, Jonathan, thank you again. We really appreciate you coming on today and talking about this. I
appreciate you having me on.
And
a lot of fun. I love nerding out.
Can any of these collectors expect to see you at, say, a Comic-Con or some of these larger events?
I don't do Comic-Cons anymore. I used to, but I never got any sales from those. It ended up costing me money. However, there is a show called Wonderfest that takes place in Louisville, Kentucky, beginning of June. And I go to that. I'm a judge there. I'm in the judging department.
Wow.
And so I take models and I put it on the judges table. So it doesn't get judged or anything. You can just come see, hey, this is what the judges put together. And what I'm going to try and do, it might be a little ambitious, but I'm going to see if I can have one of my 350 Excelsiors there this year.
Wow.
It will be the first one ever done. Ever. No one's ever done a 350 Excelsior ever. And I think I'm gonna, if I can get it done, I'm gonna have it on the judges table, and I'm trying to schmooze a buddy of mine to bring his 350 refit, like put it next to it. It'd be awesome. So
that would be amazing. So this June in Kentucky, somebody can
Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay, they can at least come and meet you.
Yeah, just look up Wonderfest.
Okay. All right, cool.
And if you go to my Facebook as well, again, it's Marshall Custom Models. There are all kinds of ways to contact me. And, I had one guy this last Wonderfest who we were meeting up, and he would just send me a message on Facebook. Where are you? I'm over here. And we would just go meet up and we'd hang out. So yeah, there are all kinds of ways to contact me and chat with me. And I just love what this is, and I want to pass it on. I want to meet other people with the same passion. So
great. Well, if we have any model buffs listening, please feel free to contact Jonathan. He's got an open book, and he's got a big one. This sounds like you put together quite a thick encyclopedia of how this can all work. So imagine
I thought about putting it down on a paper, but I thought about putting it down on a piece of paper. I'm like, I don't know how to do that.
Oh, okay.
It's all up in the head. Like there's so many things. I don't know. I don't even know where to start.
Sounds like it'd be an audio book instead.
Yeah, pretty much.
So
full-on podcast series just on it.
Right, no kidding. Yeah, I mean, we could keep going, I'm sure, but we do have a time limit on this, and so we thank you for joining us with us today. If anyone, as I said, want to go check this out, you've got the website address. You've also got the Kobayashi Maru music video. Please go check them out. They're well worth seeing. These things are a work of art, and they should be in a museum. They should be able to be displayed in some amazing ways. So we thank you for listening, and continue to be the geek that you are, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Take it easy, guys.